I'm joined today by Zach Barretto, Senior Vice President of Research at Expert Institute, to talk about the expert witness industry and how you can get started and grow in it. Zach, thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here.
So, Zach, can you tell us a little about yourself and your background and a little bit of an overview on Expert Institute?
Absolutely. So an expert witness is anyone in pretty much any field or industry that can come in and give a opinion that the court will look at and say, yeah, this is someone that we think is valid. This person knows what they're talking about. They've had the years of experience. They have the education. They have, everything in their background that makes them, on paper, qualified to speak on a particular topic. And that's really all an expert witness is. You're just the person who knows the most about this particular subject. Our clients are attorneys, and these attorneys get cases in all different, areas and topics and subjects, and they might not know anything about these things, and they need people who can explain it to them, and then potentially help explain that topic to a court. So an expert witness is someone who comes in, who understands, whatever the subject is in these cases, and can, as easy as possible, explain it to everyone involved in the case. So just explaining a particular industry, a topic, a subject, anything along those lines. Expert Institute was started around 13 or 14 years ago to really assist attorneys in finding the most qualified subject matter experts for their cases. And as we've grown, we've built up a really large network of qualified people. And as our network has grown, so has the number of cases we've brought in, and kind of these things have grown together, our network of attorneys and our network of experts. So we are a really tremendous business development tool for, expert witnesses who are really interested in taking on these cases and getting as involved as possible in this type of work. There's an abundant number of cases in this country. As I said earlier, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Almost every case you could think of requires an expert witness, and this is a very litigious country. So, for us, we are just trying to build the most robust network possible so that we can really create lasting engagements between attorneys and experts and continue to grow and give people as much opportunity as possible.
What are the typical ways that lawyers work with experts?
It's pretty straightforward. There's not really that many variations. So there are consulting experts. So people who are kind of behind the scenes who give advice to these attorneys. It's important for them to have access to that type of information so they know, hey, do I move forward with this case or not? If I'm going into a deposition where you're going to be being questioned or you're going to be questioning the other side, you might want advice on what type of questions to ask. So there are consulting experts, but the vast majority of expert witness work is, exactly that. It is, you are kind of put as, in front of the court as this is the expert in the case. You are given the records or, whatever else might be involved to review the literature. You might do an inspection somewhere, and you take all this information that you've gathered and you create an opinion that you provide to the attorney and to the court. And from there are certainly steps that follow that. There's depositions, there's potentially trial that could be involved where you're brought in person or potentially virtually to give your opinion. But those are, typically those are the steps you follow. You do your initial review of the case, then you do your initial report of the case, and then you get into some of the deposition, trial, and maybe some other type of consulting from there.
So if I work through you as an expert witness, will I have to testify in court?
Not necessarily. And it really depends on what you're looking to do, because there's different options of things that we allow our experts to do. As I said earlier, you can join as a consulting expert. There are people that are just here to help do certificates of merit, which are kind of before the court proceeds with the case. It's kind of just, does this case have something to it or not? But the real answer is, if you become an expert witness in a case, it is more likely than not that you will not have to go to trial. These things typically settle before getting that far, but you have to be prepared to in case that it does. That might sound scary, but it's really not. I mean, it's really giving your opinion once again in person. There might be a little more detail involved, and you might have to think a little bit more about the things that you're going to say. But it is generally a normal part of the process. You might have an accident or reconstruction case. This could be a personal injury type case. You have a tractor trailer, from some large corporation that you could probably think that you see on the highways all the time, and there's this major incident, and you might see a crash or something along those lines that involve possibly death, serious injury, something along those lines. You might have to have someone go out and view the scene and do an analysis of what do these skid marks mean? This crash, from the photos here, which cars hit where, and kind of do an analysis. Doing it in person, doing it via photos, that's something that regularly might happen. From there, they'd go in together, and I think the really next important step in expert witness work is just working closely with attorneys. So having a conversation about what your findings are and what their expectations are from you next. And if everyone is on the same page, you move to that next step, which is creating your report for the court. That will get submitted, and from there may be it could take a while to ever hear back about something like this, or it can move relatively quickly depending on the case. Once again, it's always different depending on what state you're in and the attorneys that you're working with and everything like that. They'll come back to you with questions. You might need supplemental reports. More information might come in. You might provide your report, and the other side may have done something in their reconstruction and found something different that maybe wasn't found on your end, and you have to analyze that and potentially provide a contradicting opinion. But at the end of the day, all this analysis is happening at the onset of this, and once again, typically these things settle. But you may be asked to go ahead and give your opinion in person or virtually, in deposition. And these are things that are scheduled well in advance. You're going to be here. Hey, when are you available to do this deposition? It's not necessarily like, hey, be here at this time. It is, we want experts that have actual jobs within industry. So they're busy people. So when they go to do a deposition, they're scheduled, usually map out a day or two for which you'll be available for this. And you go and you do these testimonies, once again, virtually or in person. And then there will be some type of settlement or outcome, favorable for your client or potentially the other side, depending on how things go.
Great. What types of people are qualified to be experts? What do your clients look for when they're looking to hire an expert?
That is a really great question because it is so subjective, and everyone might think it's something different. I could sit here and say, it's 10 years of experience in this particular area, but it's not. You might have a case that involves a really specific piece of equipment that only 5 people in the world have used. And they might have only used it for a year because it is so specialized and so niche. And in which case, if you're the only person that's used it, you're probably the most qualified expert to find. If we're in the medical field, you do want someone who's a little more, I guess later on in their career to a degree. You want them to be board certified. You want them to have completed a fellowship already and probably working, for a few years. When you're thinking outside of these engineering cases or these medical malpractice cases, you want whoever is essentially regulating an industry, whoever's at the top. So it could be C-level executives in a particular area. It can be, board members, or even government officials. You'll see cases involving OSHA, or the Department of Transportation. And you want people who have just been in those positions for a really long time, high up, who know the regulations and standards. So it's really a wide variety.
How do I know if I have enough experience? How do I get past my imposter syndrome to know that I'm the one who can deliver the goods?
It's interesting to use the term imposter syndrome because it's really rare that I've actually come across that in this industry. I think when you've reached a certain point in your career, you kind of know that, hey, I'm ready for this type of thing. The few times that I do see that happen is when it's a really niche case and it's outside of things that are usually settled within the legal field, like really niche specialties. I'll give a good example of this. You have cases that involve garbage trucks and how they operate and what the rules are for these things. And to find somebody within that industry, who's actually specialized in the day-to-day work, rather than someone from the top who's like kind of like from the regulation side. You're going to someone who's been just working with garbage trucks their entire career. They might say, I don't know about this. But the thing is, it's kind of not up to them, frankly, if they're the expert. It's up to what everyone else perceives an expert to be in this field, and what the attorneys perceive to be an expert. So if you're in that area and you're doing it day in and day out for a long period of time, you are likely, more likely than not, an expert in that area. So it really depends on the type of field you're in to really determine, how to, if you feel like an expert or not. But I think if someone is reaching out to you about this stuff, it's likely because they've seen things in your resume and in your background that make us comfortable thinking of you as an expert.
That's great. Let's turn to the good part. How much can I earn as an expert witness?
It is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. So there is a lot of money to be made, and it varies. Once again, it's funny because it is based on specialty. You will see a neurosurgeon who's charging, between $1,500 and $2,000 an hour. You'll see on the lower end, say something medical. Say just a general surgeon, maybe someone who doesn't have Ivy League credentials or something along those lines, charge anywhere between like $350 and $600 an hour. You'll see legal malpractice, attorneys who are really qualified at what they do to come in and like potentially testify in an area that they're specialized in against other peers. Once again, it could be anywhere between $500 and $1,000 an hour. It all depends on your level of experience and kind of the industry that you're in. I mean, those things definitely play a difference, and things will vary. There's a case that comes in that's a rush. They need something that's done next week. We need a report that's completed ASAP. Can you put a premium on that? Sure. But at the end of the day, I think anyone who's working in this industry has a really appropriate hourly rate for them. That is, I think does better than even what they would normally do in their typical line of work. Because you do want someone who is a busy practitioner in what they're doing, and to convince someone to go outside of that and take on additional work, they should be incentivized to do that. And I think this industry does a really good job of doing that. Now, how much time you spend on each one of these cases varies as well. And it could be a few hours, which still makes a good amount of money. But say this is a case that's going into deposition and trial, and they're requiring you to take off potentially a day or two of work. This could get up into the tens of thousands of dollars, and regularly does for experts. So there is certainly a significant incentive to participate in this type of work.
So those are exciting numbers, but a pretty big range. What tips do you have on helping people decide where they should set their rate?
I would honestly just, from my perspective, if someone's working with me in my company, speak to us. We do this day in and day out. We understand what the market rates are and what, value you're bringing to the table in these particular cases. I think it's best just to have a conversation. If you, are someone who works, you have attorneys and consultants who have actually specific hourly rates already that they kind of know on a corporate level. Those people, they can typically come in and you can put I think maybe add something extra on top of that. Oftentimes just go with your normal consulting rate. That's something that's totally reasonable that a lot of people do. And I think that is kind of the norm. Go with that your typical normal hourly rate. If you're unsure, it's best to have a conversation. And listen, I know not everyone does this through our company. I hope that I'd like to work with as many experts as I can. But if not, I think it's important to have I hope you can trust the attorney that you're working with outside of us. And if so, have a level conversation about this is what I think this is worth. And I think they'll let you know whether or not it's within the budget. Because you have to think about, one, how large this case is. Is it a multi-million-dollar case, or is it something that's only worth $10,000 to $20,000? You have to take these things into consideration. But for me, it's all about over communication in this industry. As long as you're over communicating and having open discussions with the person you're working with, you'll typically land on the right area.
Okay. Sounds great. Why don't we pivot to how you get involved in expert witnessing, and maybe a great opportunity to talk about, what is Expert Institute's role in the industry, and what's the best way for people to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So what is interesting about this is unless you are in a field that regularly does expert witness work, we're going to find you. That's kind of like our role, because attorneys come to our company because it's not easy to find the right perfect expert for every single case. And sometimes these experts, we've never needed someone to speak on these specific topics before. So we do often go out and find these people. But outside of that, I would encourage people to reach out to Expert Institute and have a conversation with someone at our company if you're interested, and then create a profile for yourself. That is the best way to go about it. If you express interest and you create your profile, and the more information you give about yourself, the better, because I want to know everything about what your specialties are. You might have more than one, and the more detail we get about where you think your expertise is, the better. The one thing I might warn people against is kind of advertising yourself as an expert witness. So putting it on your profiles, signing up on public websites, because what we do is we kind of have it in an internal database of experts that we can reach out to and introduce to our attorneys. Because it is somewhat frowned upon, or it is frowned upon when you go into a court and the other side can say, well, are you really just an expert witness, or do you have a job outside of this? And because we want people who are experts in the field. We don't want people who just are expert witnesses all the time. We want people who are actual industry experts. So you have to be a little careful about kind of flaunting yourself out there like that, which is a great reason to work with a company like mine, because we are a tremendous business development tool for the experts that we work with. We have, we work with over 4,000 attorneys. We get thousands of cases a month in every different type of specialty that you could think of. So to create a profile with us and put yourself on our radar, we can easily find you within our system and run the cases by you. And it's up to you whether or not you take these things on. It's not, hey, I sign up, they reach out to me, I'm taking this. It's taking the details of the case, taking the, what are the requirements? What's the time commitment here? Understand if it's something that you're going to work on. And if it is, we will put you in touch with the attorneys to work with directly and hopefully have continuing, successful engagements with them.
So once you've connected with a potential expert about working on a case, what does the recruiting and the interview process look like? And what are your tips for differentiating yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that we're looking for. And one is obviously credentials. We want to make sure you have the right education, work experience, part of the right associations, have the publications, whatever it is that might make you relevant to this. And step two is we're going to have a conversation with you about the case. So, here are the details. Let's get into it a little bit and see where your opinion might fall. And there's a couple of reasons we're having this conversation with you. One is we want to have an understanding of how you might feel about one of our clients' cases, not to push you in one direction or the other, but we want to make sure that it's a match that you two can be like-minded and potentially can work together on this. Another reason to have these conversations with you is because we want to make sure that we're working with people that are good communicators. That's something that we look for. If you're eventually going to be giving your opinion to a lay person that's on a jury or in the courtroom, you want them to be able to clearly understand your opinions and what you're trying to get across. So that's part of the interview process as well. And from there, it's really about just submitting the right amount of information. We want to get your CV, your fee schedule, your litigation experience. Provide this stuff to us. And if you are a good communicator and you're easy to work with, meaning you make yourself available to set up a quick call with our clients, it makes a huge difference. We want to make sure that this is an easy process for everyone involved, the experts and the attorneys, and we want people to really be able to work closely together without getting in the way of each other's careers and jobs and everything like that. So, being a good communicator and being open to scheduling and kind of getting back to people in a timely manner, that is the best way to get involved in these cases and to get picked to be an expert in one of these cases.
And if I'm hired on a case, can you talk for a moment about sort of what's my relationship with Expert Institute beyond that point? What services do you provide to me, the expert witness?
Yeah, so we have a portal. We call it IQ, where experts can track their engagements and see what they're working on, and bill attorneys if you need help with your invoicing or something along those lines. That's obviously something that we can assist with. But for us, it's more of like it's a continued relationship because these cases continually come in within your specialty, and we're going to continue to reach out to you. And it's on us to vet our clients to make sure that they're the right people that you should be working with, because you don't want to just blindly work with someone you don't know that might not be trustworthy. And so it's our job to help you find great attorneys to work with, because that's the ideal situation. And from there, once you've been retained on a case, we let you work with the attorneys directly. We don't want to middleman the process or kind of poke around too much, because it's your role. That's what you should be doing. You should be working with these attorneys. But we're always here for assistance. If anyone has questions or needs to, or has any type of issue that they need help with, or wants to communicate a certain difficult opinion to an attorney, we're here to help that and kind of hold your hand through that process. So, I'd say, like, one, we're a business development tool. We put you in touch with the right people. And two, we want to assist you as much as possible so you're comfortable throughout the process. So even if we might not be involved the entire time, we're here to help.
Do you handle like invoicing and billing, or is that direct with the client?
So the experts invoice clients directly and are paid directly by the attorneys. We do not take any money from the experts. Everything they earn is theirs.
What's the best way to get started with Expert Institute?
It is to go to our website, expertinstitute.com, and create a profile for yourself within IQ. And frankly, if you want to go to our, about me page or about us page, find my profile and shoot me an email directly. I'm happy to correspond with anybody. And give some background on our company, the industry. If you have questions, let me know. I can certainly put you in touch with the right people at our company to kind of make sure you get the right profile created and get eyes on you for the cases that you're interested in.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Zach.